This is the story of how a single sheet of heavy parchment, cleanly stamped with the word void, shattered a queen's illusion of absolute commercial power. In less than 24 hours, what was supposed to be a highly lucrative global unveiling of Camilla's new corporate empire was transformed into a devastating physical humiliation right at the gates of Buckingham Palace. What looked like a routine review of royal commercial partnerships was actually the activation of a cold, forensic blockade against an unprecedented institutional overreach. What Camilla just realized in the suffocating silence of her private office is that the title of queen cannot be monetized. And against the ironclad financial governance of the sovereign bloodline, she actually owns absolutely nothing. In this video, we are going to unpack the secret, desperate commercial power grab Camilla attempted under the cover of the new reign's transitional period. We will examine how she tried to weaponize the Royal Warrant system, an ancient mechanism of sovereign approval, to build an independent multi-million-pound financial fortress for her non-royal children and public relations allies. We will look at exactly how Prince William and Princess Anne uncovered the forensic paper trail of her staggering exploitation, and we will break down the silent administrative guillotine that severed her commercial influence before a single branded product could cross the palace threshold. By the end of this analysis, you will understand how the most ruthless retaliations are executed not with public outrage, but with the quiet, devastating enforcement of institutional law. To comprehend the sheer magnitude of this structural collapse, we must first look at the towering illusion of absolute supremacy Camilla had spent 3 decades meticulously constructing. For 30 years, she operated with a singular, unyielding focus, navigating her way from the deep shadows of public scandal to the center of the royal balcony. But her ultimate psychological objective was never merely about wearing a crown, it was about achieving permanent, undeniable institutional security. Over the decades, we witnessed what appeared to be the systematic erasure of Princess Diana's legacy through the subtle rewriting of palace history and the aggressive push to elevate her own non-royal family into the permanent fabric of the state. Camilla operated under the profound, unwavering belief that because she held total control over the heart and decisions of King Charles, she inherently wielded the executive authority of the crown's vast commercial machinery. She treated the king's personal devotion as a blank check for absolute power. Throughout the past several years, she navigated her elevated position with a staggering level of confidence, building an empire of influence surrounded by an expensive public relations apparatus. This echo chamber convinced her that the public had forgotten the past, and that the institution was finally hers to reshape and, most importantly, to monetize. She felt completely secure in her positions, completely failing to notice that the true financial architecture of the monarchy had already shifted away from her husband. The trigger for this unprecedented internal war occurred as the palace began the highly classified decennial review of royal warrants. For centuries, the royal warrant of appointment has been the ultimate commercial currency in Britain. A golden crest granted to tradesmen and corporations that supply goods to the royal household. Earning the right to display the words "by appointment to Her Majesty" is not a mere vanity project, it is a globally recognized seal of absolute prestige that can instantly inject tens of millions of pounds into a company's valuation. Recognizing the inherent fragility of a consort's position, Camilla was gripped by a sophisticated form of survival panic. She knew that her access to state-funded luxury was tied entirely to the king's lifetime, and that she held no independent wealth of her own. Driven by this commercial desperation, Camilla attempted a breathtaking secret administrative maneuver. She sought to entirely bypass the strict, rigorous vetting protocols of the Royal Warrant Holders Association. Behind closed doors, she quietly directed her private office to push through a highly classified slate of new, permanent royal warrants, but these were not for heritage tradesmen or rural craftsmen. The paperwork revealed an orchestrated attempt to grant the Golden Crest to a network of aggressive public relations firms, private luxury lifestyle brands heavily affiliated with her son, Tom Parker Bowles, and the private estate businesses of her closest aristocratic allies. This was not a minor breach of protocol. It was a calculated hostile takeover of the crown's commercial integrity. Camilla was attempting to turn the sovereign seal of approval into a personal ATM, funneling unprecedented corporate value toward her private bloodline. She was attempting to embed her inner circle into the permanent lucrative economy of the state. ensuring that even after Charles was gone, her family would possess independent, untouchable commercial dominance. She fundamentally believed that her signature as queen consort was enough to override the ancient, unyielding financial architecture of the institution. What Camilla did not anticipate was that the administrative machinery she was attempting to manipulate was no longer vulnerable to her influence. While she was busy projecting power through her commercial operatives, Prince William was quietly protecting the perimeter. When William inherited the Duchy of Cornwall and assumed his role as the Prince of Wales, he did not just inherit vast tracts of land, he inherited the absolute oversight of the royal family's overarching financial and commercial integrity. William is a man who carries the silent, enduring grief of his mother's public humiliation, coupled with a fierce, unwavering instinct to protect the future of the crown for his wife, Catherine, and their children. When Camilla's unauthorised warrant applications bypassed the standard committees and were routed for final sovereign validation, they triggered an immediate, highly classified audit. The paperwork landed squarely in the operational view of Prince William and Princess Anne. Anne, who possesses an encyclopedic knowledge of rural enterprise and commercial royal protocol, immediately recognized the staggering exploitation hidden within the corporate jargon. Together, William and Anne conducted a silent forensic review of the commercial contracts. They uncovered the extensive metadata trail of shell companies, the clear conflicts of interest, and the precise, calculated attempt to cheapen the royal seal for private family gain. The moral outrage was absolute. For William, who has watched his wife Catherine generate billions for the British economy simply through her uncomplaining sacrifice and flawless grace, Camilla's attempt to artificially manufacture wealth for her stepfamily crossed an unforgivable red line. But in the upper echelons of the British monarchy, you do not retaliate with emotional screaming matches or leaked tabloid stories. You retaliate with weaponized restraint. The execution of their revenge was completely silent, turning the very bureaucracy Camilla tried to exploit into an inescapable commercial guillotine. William did not confront his stepmother. He simply utilized his absolute authority over the royal estate's commercial frameworks. He enacted what palace insiders are quietly referring to as the Warrant Blockade. A new internal mandate was immediately circulated to the Royal Warrant Holders Association and the palace gates. The retaliation culminated on the morning of a highly anticipated secret PR rollout. One of the newly appointed lifestyle brands closely linked to Camilla's family had sent a fleet of luxury delivery vans to Buckingham Palace. They intended to orchestrate a photo opportunity, capturing their goods, crossing the royal threshold bearing the newly minted golden crest of the Queen. But as the vans approached the heavy iron gates, the trap snapped shut with breathtaking speed. The vehicles were abruptly halted by state security. There were no flashing cameras, and there was no dramatic public scene. There was only the devastating reality of a blocked entrance. The security teams had been issued strict directives. The incoming goods were unauthorized. The delivery personnel were informed that their royal warrants had not been validated, and they were ordered to immediately cover the golden crests painted on the sides of their vehicles before leaving the perimeter. The highly lucrative global unveiling was completely dismantled in the shadows of a side street. Simultaneously, a thick manila envelope was placed on Camilla's private desk. Inside was her entire slate of commercial applications. Every single warrant requested for her family and PR allies had been cleanly stamped with a single word: void. The attached administrative note, bearing the quiet authority of the Prince of Wales's office, stated simply that the applications did not meet the rigorous commercial integrity standards required by the Crown. In that suffocating silence, surrounded by the physical evidence of her dismantled corporate empire, Camilla was forced to face the most terrifying truth of all. The billion-dollar public relations machine could not bypass the duchy's financial firewall. Stripped of the commercial machinery she thought she controlled, she realized that she does not own the golden crest. The title she wears cannot be sold. Her ability to grant favors and manufacture wealth for her family had been severed with a single administrative stamp. The grand illusion was instantly shattered. As the panic of total commercial containment set in, Camilla reached for the encrypted telephone, desperate to demand that King Charles intervene. Entirely unaware that the silence waiting for her on the other end of the line would change the reading of everything. The heavy encrypted telephone receiver felt like ice in her hand as the line connected to the king's private study. In the echoing, suffocating silence of her isolated office, Camilla presented her grievances with the practiced, breathless urgency of a woman whose entire financial fortress was suddenly in freefall. She laid out the humiliating border rejection of the delivery vans, the revoked commercial access of her inner circle, and the devastating administrative blockade orchestrated by Prince William. She demanded an immediate sovereign intervention. She fully expected King Charles to summon the Royal Warrant Holders Association, overrule the Prince of Wales, and reinstate the lucrative commercial endorsements she had so carefully mapped out for her bloodline. For 3 decades, this exact dynamic had been her ultimate safety net. Charles had fractured his relationship with the public, dismantled his marriage to Diana, and absorbed immense global criticism, all to ensure she would one day wield the executive power of a queen. But that is where the narrative shifts completely, not because of a grand dramatic argument, but because of a devastating, unyielding silence. King Charles did not pick up the secure phone to countermand his heir. He did not summon the household financial advisors to draft a royal override. Instead, he met his wife's frantic demands with an exhaustion that carried the absolute weight of the monarchy's commercial and constitutional future. The king's silence was not a sign of a husband's indifference, it was the profound, calculated concession of a reigning monarch who had just been forced to face the harsh reality of his own shifting reign. Charles understands what Camilla refuses to accept. The commercial survival of the House of Windsor no longer depends on the ambitions of the present, but on the unshakable, legally binding financial stability of the future, a future entirely managed by Prince William. By refusing to intervene, the king quietly validated the commercial guillotine that William and Princess Anne had dropped. He signalled to the entire palace apparatus that the true governing authority over the royal branding, the estates, and the financial integrity of the institution had already transitioned to the Prince of Wales. Intervening to protect Camilla's private network now would mean declaring a public institutional war against his own heir, risking a catastrophic scandal that would permanently cheapen the crown's global prestige. In that agonizing quiet room, Charles chose the monarchy over her. He chose the survival of the bloodline. And in doing so, he left Camilla to face the terrifying realization that her ultimate shield had just dissolved. This devastating silence exposes the raw, fragile underbelly of what can only be described as Camilla's profound commercial desperation. To the outside world, she wears the state jewels and occupies the grandest rooms in the kingdom, creating the glittering illusion of absolute power. But the cold economic reality of the British monarchy is that she actually owns nothing. She holds no independent royal wealth. The vast historical estates, the private palaces, and the multi-billion-dollar financial engine of the Duchy of Cornwall do not belong to her. Her frantic attempt to secure permanent royal warrants for her non-royal network was not a mere branding exercise. It was a panicked, calculated maneuver to build a legally binding, state-subsidized commercial fortress for her family before the inevitable transition of the crown. A permanent royal warrant is not just a crest on a delivery van, it is an administrative blank check. It guarantees permanent elite status, global consumer trust, and massive corporate valuations that cannot simply be revoked on a whim. Camilla knew that the moment King Charles is no longer on the throne, her institutional currency drops to absolute zero. She becomes entirely dependent on the financial grace and favor of King William V. Her push to embed her son and her public relations operatives into the permanent commercial economy of the state was born out of a suffocating awareness that her time at the top is strictly finite. William's decision to execute a forensic audit and permanently void those applications was a masterclass in institutional containment. He weaponized the bureaucracy of the state to lay bare her financial vulnerability, revealing that without the explicit approval of the Prince of Wales, her personal empire is completely insolvent. The deeper meaning behind this silent execution of revenge became highly visible in the weeks that followed. The block delivery vans leaving the gates of Buckingham Palace were not just a logistical failure. They were the ultimate visual representation of an institutional quarantine. The subtle details of this shifting power are now visible to anyone who understands this silent language of the British monarchy. Corporate entities and palace courtiers who possess an exquisite radar for where the true power lies immediately recognize the shift. The message was sent through 1,000 minor administrative updates aligning with Camilla's private commercial ambitions is now a fast track to institutional exile. This is where the story shifts from the cold execution of containment to the undeniable restoration of the true order. As Camilla's borrowed commercial power evaporated, Catherine, the Princess of Wales, took her rightful place with an effortless, quiet dominance. The contrast between the two women could not have been more stark, and the institution knows exactly who holds the true power. Catherine has never needed to submit unauthorized memorandums to the Royal Warrant Holders Association to secure her family's legacy. She does not need a manufactured echo chamber of public relations operatives to project authority or generate wealth. Her power is rooted in uncomplaining sacrifice, flawless execution of duty, and the unshakable legitimacy of the sovereign bloodline. When Catherine wears a simple dress or champions a rural British business, she organically injects millions into the economy, a phenomenon the global press calls the Kate effect. Her influence is authentic, earned through years of silent endurance and absolute loyalty to the crown. By ensuring that the commercial integrity of the monarchy remains untainted by Camilla's private overreach, William was doing more than protecting the duchy's assets. He was offering a silent, devastating defense of his mother's legacy, proving that the true value of the institution belongs exclusively to the rightful heirs. He ensured that Catherine will never have to compete with a manufactured state-funded shadow court. Ultimately, this extraordinary internal reckoning resonates far beyond the heavy iron gates of Buckingham Palace because it validates a fundamental truth about power and legitimacy. It demonstrates that the ancient organism of the British monarchy cannot be permanently hollowed out by clever public relations, nor can its highest commercial endorsements be bought through emotional manipulation. The crown protects its assets, its history, and its bloodline at all costs. Camilla believed that by outlasting her critics and securing the title of Queen, she had achieved absolute permanent victory. She thought she had conquered the institution and secured the keys to its vaults. But she failed to recognize that true royal authority cannot be taken by storm or secured through administrative tricks. As she sat in her quiet office looking at the voided applications that contained her dismantled future, the grand illusion vanished completely. She may still wear the state jewels for now, but everyone inside the palace, and soon everyone in the world knows the truth. The trap has snapped shut. The boundaries of the estate have been permanently redrawn. The reign of the commercial shadow court has been entirely dismantled, leaving behind only the cold reality of a consort who is merely a temporary guest in a house she sought to rule, and the undeniable truth that the era of Prince William has already begun. Thank you for exploring this deep dive into the hidden power dynamics and commercial battles of the British monarchy. If you found this forensic analysis compelling, please consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a comment below with your thoughts on Prince William and Princess Anne's decisive retaliation. Your engagement helps us continue to uncover the unspoken truths behind the palace walls.